the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Okay, guys, and we are back from finishing this live stream that got mysteriously ended, not by my own determinism. So I will let you guys know what happened, but let's finish this interview with Marty Rathbun. We're almost done.
I did, serve as a reform agent. I was working to get them to reform. I mean, initially I thought, they could reform, and then I thought, and I did encourage people to go out and practice Scientology independently for that very reason, because I studied the Christian Reformation. The Christian Reformation wasn't a reorganizing of the Catholic Church. The Christian Reformation was people saying you're not the only show in town, and you're not the only, you don't own the patent and copyright to this. We can take that same book and practice it the way we see fit. And so I did encourage that, and that there was some of that. But I got to tell you, it wasn't long before I realized that the behavior patterns and the things that create these odd behavior patterns ran much deeper than just something that the church was doing. I saw it happening with the people on the outside, and I suggested real simple. I gave 3 pieces of advice. I wrote a book called "What Is Wrong with Scientology," and I said, in order for Scientologists to make this a viable subject in the future and relevant at all, they're going to have to learn to integrate, they're going to have to learn to evolve, and they're going to have to learn to transcend. And you got to learn to not take yourself so seriously and look at a lot of this stuff from Hubbard as allegorical or parable, but to take it literally is a problem. Well, that was that was like heresy. I mean, and I'm talking about the people who are outside of the church. And I realized these guys who were even outside of the church were just as much in a prison of belief as the ones inside. And that's where then I spent the last 3 or 4 years really deconstructing the subject and realizing how that came to be.
Again, you guys, what is there to reform about these dehumanizing practices? The only thing to reform is to stop allowing anyone that is under the age of 21 to be exposed to them. It's time to start advocating against them acquiring children to practice on, because it's indefensible AF to have kids exposed to these depravities. It's really just that simple. There's nothing to reform. There's nothing to change. It's don't allow any single child to be involved in this because they are of no age to consent.
I've been speaking out about Scientology for years now, but I do think that this film is going to introduce a whole new set of people to your concerns, to the things that concern you about the movement. When you were asked to participate in the film, did you hesitate at all out of maybe fear of some kind of retribution? Was there anything that went through your mind? Were you concerned at all?
No, in a way, this film is sort of the culmination and the best comprehensive telling of what I've been through for the past 6 years. I've been talking about this, writing about it, and I think what the real contribution to this film is, I think it is going to do for the media what I've done with former members. I said from the beginning to the former members, when enough of you stand up and stop kowtowing to their abusive sort of terroristic kind of policies, you're going to hit a tipping point where they can't keep up with all that. They've only got so many resources. They operate like organized crime. They go make an example of somebody and then tell everybody else, look, you all need to be afraid of us. You all need to shut up. The media has been like that to quite an extent. Alex and HBO are the first ones, major, credible ones that have done a comprehensive piece like this, chronicling all this, that did not kowtow to Scientology. They did not submit to Scientology controlling the cycle and spinning it and influencing it, and you know what I'm saying? And that's why I think it's significant.
What kind of harassment have you been the target of following the types of reports that you've been releasing?
Well, a lot of it's chronicled in the film. They've sent agents in on me. They've sent agents provocateur in on me. Every time I go to an airport, they've got PIs or Scientologists confronting me. And then, of course, for an extended period of time, they've just parked right in front of our house. And every time my wife and I leave, they've been in our face with cameras.
Who is David Miscavige, and can you describe your relationship with him?
He was a messenger for Hubbard, which was sort of a group of teenagers.
A group of teenagers is who David Miscavige represents, you guys. We are in this problem because a group of teenagers, hand-selected by L. Ron Hubbard himself, the child trafficker that he was, decided to, empower teenagers, gullible, uncultured teenagers that really thought L. Ron Hubbard was their homie, and L. Ron Hubbard knew what in the hell he was doing. And that's how we got to this problem in the first place, because teenagers became obsessed with L. Ron Hubbard. Teenagers such as Shelley Miscavige, teenagers such as this one here that you see on the screen. It's like Marty Rathbun also got into this scam quite young, not as young as I did, but definitely young. So teenagers took control, and leave some narcissistic teenagers in charge, because that's really what's gonna, have a religion.
Sons and daughters of Scientologists that were in the priesthood.
Sons and daughters that were in the priesthood. So on one side of his mouth, he says it's a criminal enterprise. But then all of a sudden, now he just changed his tune, and now he says, oh, it's a priesthood. So which one is it, Marty? Were y'all part of a priesthood, or were y'all part of a criminal enterprise? Because criminal enterprise and priesthood are not something you can just switch around. That's not a thing. You cannot be a priesthood doing the work of the Lord and also being a criminal. It's just not a thing.
Who Hubbard was grooming as to be leaders. And he was the most sort of aggressive, most loyal to Hubbard of the lot. No, so it was no surprise that he rose to the top amongst them. And he was picked by Hubbard to lead this whole defense of the church. And when I first worked with him in the early 80s, I sort of considered that I was working with a guy who was, I kind of felt like I was working for the underdog. And frankly, when we were in that role, he was a lot more agreeable, a lot more, decent to work with. But as time went on, he began to get control and power. Hubbard died, then he had another power struggle with another, and he got complete control, then absolute power, absolutely corrupted. And I watched this dwindling spiral of the guy.
And again, you guys, they cannot stop pitching how all the dwindling spiral was just David Miscavige. As if they were not all part of a team going down that same dwindling spiral, as if they don't all had power trips of their very own.
Became increasingly motivated by wanting to be in the inner circle with this whole celebrity, the life of the rich and famous clique. obsessed with his own image, paranoid beyond belief, creating group confessions to get to the bottom of what kind of intentions might be lurking within the ranks against him. I mean, like Stalin-esque type of stuff. And so I witnessed the whole sort of bell curve, his rise and fall.
What are some of
He was a co-conspirator of that bell curve, is what he meant to say, you guys. He was there witnessing, he was there participating, he was there being David's deputy for decades. So how can he just put so much distance between David and himself when they were both two peas in a literal pod? But again, none of these executives of Scientology want you to believe that the problem was them. They've all now conspired to blame everything on David Miscavige. David had the power. David was the top. We didn't do anything wrong. He did all the wrong things. We were just little innocent lambs ourselves. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because those of us that were there as kids witnessing these adults having their power trips would really push back on that false narrative that's being paraded here by Marty Rathbun.
of these abuses that Scientology has committed against its members?
They have to do with breaking up families. They have to do with making people work or inducing them to work long hours for no pay, cutting them off from the outside world so they're not evolving and staying in tune with the way the world's progressing. And incidentally, and this is where I can speak more from firsthand knowledge, and also I think it's more relevant to the outside world. They go to extreme measures to, as I've described, to silence dissent or to silence criticism. And I think that's what people should focus on more than anything. What they do within their four walls. This is America. You could worship the dollar and you're okay. Once they step out of those four walls and they start hounding and hunting and terrorizing people, then they're not privileged to do that.
Isn't that great, you guys? Marty Rathbun pitches to us that this is America. You can worship the dollar inside of those hotels. That the only thing that's wrong with Scientology is that they separate people from their family. And, that's a very big inconvenience. Did he say anything about abusing kids? Did he say anything about protecting self-admitted rapists? No. According to Marty, that's perfectly okay. According to Marty, you can practice medicine without a license and law without a license inside of those hotels because you don't need it. You don't need a license to launder felonies because it's in America. You can worship whatever, and whatever you do within the confines of those four walls is okay. He was just inconvenienced that they started setting up those terroristic ops on him and his wife when he left. Then he was inconvenienced. Then he was like, oh, this is not okay to do to me. Never mind that he's the mastermind and the architect of all of those things that were being done to him. And never mind that as much as he comes and pretends that he's coming clean here, he's not coming clean of anything.
And they should go under the microscope, and there should be action by the authorities that be.
I don't plan on joining any religious group. Why should I be concerned? Is there anything that could negatively affect me about the existence of Scientology? Or is it really just...
Not necessarily. In fact, that's what I...
See? Not necessarily. And yeah, not necessarily. I mean, if adults want to be abusive to other adults, they're all in on it, they all co-sign on it, they all get off on it, then that's wonderful, and we don't care to stop that. The only way this reporter could be negatively affected is if he actually took his job seriously and he actually understood the psychological repercussions of terrorizing children, psychologically terrorizing children, submitting them to these gaslighting chambers where they're being dehumanized without their ability to consent. So that's what the media should be afraid of. Why are we having this being endorsed in America? Why are kids being trafficked inside hotels and nobody cares?
Said, I mean, there's all these people saying all this stuff. I'm not part of the pack, but they're saying they're going to lose their exemption. Tom Cruise is going to be shamed into leaving. I don't know about any of that. I think what it does is it does.
We don't care about any of that, Marty Rathbun. We only care that children are being exposed, which is something apparently you don't give an F about. We don't care if Tom Cruise is being humiliated into leaving. Who cares? He's a grown-ass man. All of the adults can stay in their goddamn hotel. The only reform that needs to happen is this hotel is 21 and over only. No one else can go inside of those hotels. If you're not carded, if you're not 21 and up, you cannot consent to the type of role plays that are going to get pitched to you inside of those hotels.
Does a great service to inform people what the consequences are of being involved in it. And I think that's as much as you could ask for. And that's what I think it does. I think it's the best thing that's ever been done along that line. You know, Scientology can't compete in the marketplace of ideas when it's a level playing field. He just leveled the playing field by saying, I'm not going to be intimidated by you to let you rewrite or edit what I do. I'm going to take a look from people who actually know and put it out there.
Well, anyway, Marty, thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Thanks for having me.
The Church of Scientology repeatedly has stated that Marty Rathbun is a disgruntled ex-member trying to make profit of his lies about the church. So there you go, guys. That's what we've learned today. That Marty Rathbun, somebody that purported to be a whistleblower, only blew the whistle of grifting for himself, only went on to talk to the media because he knew the corporate media is too lazy to run their own investigations and to figure out what type of questions they really should have been asking and who the actual victims of adults are. Because again, the corporate media wants to come to the rescue of all adults involved in this. And that is not a thing. What these people are doing to each other as full consenting adults, no one can come and save them from their own stupidity. But going back to the same point, kids do not have any shred of age to be getting involved in anything that Marty Rathbun has been heard here ad nauseum pitching as a very therapeutic thing. So we're pushing back on all of these false narratives, and we keep exposing the fact that all of these executives that leave the hotels are still without a spine. And as long as these hotels are operating, children are in clear and present danger. And yes, no one that hasn't gone inside those hotels can take our word for a fact. So what in the literal hell is the corporate media waiting for to go and check it out for themselves? That is their job. They only made 1.1 million views on this video alone from Vice, you guys. How much money do you think YouTube paid these people to have this little video where they did give Marty Rathbun 21 minutes to blab and promote a film that he was being made part of a film that does not in any way, shape, or form compromise Marty's image. Because again, Marty Rathbun shows up and he's just all of a sudden the know-it-all. So let's see how much longer it takes for all of these adults to start making sense of the receipts that are in bad need of being reconciliated. Not to make us in any way, shape, or form right about anything, to stop the abuse from being perpetrated on other unsuspecting minors whose own parents are endorsing this, whose own grandparents are endorsing this, whose executives are endorsing this for themselves inside the hotels. So either the corporate media can get eyeballs for themselves inside the hotels and stop asking for executives that were doing the abuse to really speak on the subject of what happens in those hotels. So I thank you guys all for watching. And I will see you all extremely soon.